Sup? Pokemon Heartgold and Soulsilver have some of the coolest features, but if there's one that stands out the most as truly just the pinnacle of playing Pokemon, it's the Pokemon following you. In these games, the Pokemon in the first party slot will follow right behind you as you explore the region. This is easily one of the best ideas to ever be implemented into a Pokemon game, because who wouldn't want to be like Ash and have their favorite Pokemon of all time right by their side all the time? This feature has been done a number of times in different Pokemon games, but it never stands out quite like it does in Heartgold and Soulsilver. This really is just the best version of this feature. It also stands out among the games of its era because, it started in Pokemon Yellow, then disappeared for many years until Pokemon Heartgold and Soulsilver, and then disappeared again for another several generations. And because of that, there's a very unique nostalgia in Pokemon Heartgold and Soulsilver that isn't really found anywhere else in Pokemon. Being able to adventure across the entirety of Johto and Kanto with your favorite Pokemon gives you a new way to connect and build a relationship with your team. Like, it's a small change, but it does a lot to emphasize this isn't just you playing a game. No, this is a shared journey with you and all your buddies. For me, it's like I build this visual memory of the region in the game, so I don't just see myself going there or see, like Ethan, my character, going there. I see the Pokemon too. For example, when I think of the Ruins of Alph in Johto, I don't just think of my character, I think of Umbreon, or, whichever Pokemon is with me at the time. So the overworld and the region develop this visual connection with the Pokemon themselves, and it becomes much more of an actual people and Pokemon experience. And it's just so much more immersive in that way, and a lot of other games aren't like that. That is, up until the Switch games, which have absolutely no shortage of overworld Pokemon. But what the Switch games don't have is a beautiful and nostalgic pixel art style. Seriously, the jumpy animation that your Pokemon have whenever you walk around with them, they seem excited, they seem jazzed to be going on this adventure. They're just like raring to go, and it makes the Pokemon seem so lively. It brings them to life, which is special for a 2D art style that's, much less realistic than everything that came after it, pretty much. I mean, come on, they get an entire dimension less than us. Of course it's less realistic. But that's why there's also so much more charm to these older graphics. The limitations existing at the time force them to get more creative with how they bring the Pokemon to life. And the end result is just filled with so much heart and soul. At the same time, though, think about how every Mon has like a front-facing sprite, a sprite facing right, a sprite facing left, and a backward sprite. And that's for almost 500 Pokemon, and then double that because Shinies get their own overworld sprite too. Which is so cool that they did that. They absolutely did not have to do that, but they really went the extra mile doing that. For having said existing limitations, that's still pretty in-depth, which I think is pretty awesome. You can explore these games with any of your favorite Pokemon. That existed up to Gen 4, of course. No limitations, even if your favorite was shiny. And then think about the fact that the Heartgold and Soulsilver Dex is only like 250 or so, and realistically, you're only using 6 of those to actually run around during the main game. That is going above and beyond. Pokemon that walk with you also have a ton more interactivity that adds even more layers of depth to the experience. As you all may know, you can speak with your Pokemon while it's walking with you, but did you know that there's a whole lot of unique lines that come dependent on the Pokemon and the location? Sometimes it's a specific Pokemon, like one singular Pokemon in one singular location, or it could be like a group of Pokemon. For example, the Johto starters have their own unique line relative to one of the first 3 routes. Chikorita waves its leaf around, Totodile, he moves his jaw, and Cyndaquil uses Fireball Jutsu. One of these is not like the rest. Spinarak and Ariados will scuttle around the Azalea Town gym, and that's unsettling. Slowpoke will be very unhappy if he is in the Slowpoke well during the Team Rocket takeover, and I really can't blame him. Sudowoodo will stand still on Route 36 where the other Sudowoodo is. Bellossom flexes on the Kimono Girls in the Ecruteak City Dance Hall. Ampharos will sparkle along with Amphi in the Lighthouse. Unknown will make strange noises in the Ruins of Alph, which is concerning. Electrode will tremble in the Rocket Hideout. Okay, these are just death threats at this point. Squirtle will fall down and get frustrated. When these aren't terrifying, they're just kind of relatable in a way. The other Kanto starters have their own lines related to a specific route, but Squirtle's is by far the funniest. Like, why is he the only one they did like that? Bulbasaur just got to happily wave its vines around. Diglett will stretch out and relax in the Diglett Tunnel like it's on a tropical lowland vacation. Rotom will zap around in the Silphco room where you can change its form, which is cool they gave attention to like a non-native, non-Johto Dex Pokemon. In Cerulean Cave, Mewtwo will howl at the ceiling, which is kind of funny when you think about how the fact that he can talk, just like me. Imagine if I'm not gonna. And he also just straight up slaps the ground. Can somebody give bro like a punching bag or something? Like, that's gotta be like painful for his little nub things. Pretty much all the legendary Pokemon will just like look up and start screaming. Ho-Oh in Bell Tower, the legendary dogs in the Burn Tower, Lugia in the Whirl Islands, and the Creation Trio in the Sinjoh Ruins. And the Pokemon's reaction to its environment and the line it gets can also just be dependent on what type it is. So many Fire-type Pokemon will be extremely pissed off if you have them out in the rain. And yeah, understandably so. I mean, we all saw Charmander in the rain in that one episode of the anime. We all know the Dex entries. We've all been mortified as children. Don't be a Gary Oak, okay? Electric types will get an electrifying feeling in the Goldenrod Radio Tower. Not sure exactly what that means, but I want in. Bug Pokemon get excited in the National Park. Me too, buddy. Dragon types get excited in the Dragon's Den, and Ice types become cheerful in the Ice Path, while Grass types have the opposite reaction. I think my favorite though is Psychic types in Mr. Psychic's house, who they look at him, but they don't say anything. It's just like 3 dots, and then they just nod. That's creepy, but it's funny. And all of that just scratches the surface. There are a ton more unique interactions, and if I tried to go over every single one and make a stupid, dumb joke about each one, this would be a 2-hour video. I also want to mention that when you talk to your Pokemon, there's a chance you can like pick up an item, and that's a cool little feature, but it doesn't really do much for the world building, you know, it doesn't make the game more immersive. It's just like a quality of life thing, you know, just kind of something for the occasional little nice surprise. Just like finding out the McDonald's employees gave you 11 nuggets instead of 10. Like, it's probably not going to be the best thing that happens to you that day, but I still like that it happened. After Heartgold and Soulsilver, they kind of abandoned the idea pretty much entirely through like gens 5, 6, 7. However, it was eventually revived with Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. And I'd say it's a pretty good success. Being a remake of Pokemon Yellow, you can now explore the Kanto region again with Pikachu in the overworld, but now in much more creative ways, along with other Generation 1 Pokemon, some of which even have a ride feature. Like seriously, going through Kanto water routes, specifically on Lapras, it's like they're injecting pure, unfiltered nostalgia for the Pokemon Indigo League anime directly into my veins. And while, you know, it's in 3D now, and like the graphics are like literally undeniably better, they might not have the nostalgia, but they're undeniably better, and having that is really awesome. Despite all that, there's still a much more limited selection of Pokemon you can travel with compared to Heartgold and Soulsilver. So a majority of people still aren't going to be able to run around with their favorite Pokemon. But still, for games that implemented this walking feature, definitely a close second. Like, come on, you get to fly around on Charizard. Like, this is the coolest thing since 2015 MLG edits, and those are fucking awesome. And then there's both Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and the Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC. Both of these are a similar version of this idea, but with a lot of the same problems. The horribly balanced speed of the Pokemon following you is really what just kills it. There's practically like zero reason to send out a very slow Pokemon because they just lag behind until they, you know, eventually just like disappear and then teleport right back behind you. And that just defeats the entire point. And then fast Pokemon just keep bumping into your back like that annoying kid behind you in an airplane. While it's a cool idea on paper to have the Pokemon walking speeds be realistic, you would think it would emphasize to the actual, you know, creature-like aspects of the Pokemon. But in practice, it just doesn't work. And then in those newer games, the sizes are just out of whack. Wailord is not the size of a pool floaty. Trust me, I would know. And then that brings us to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and while I do appreciate the Let's Go feature as something to make it more, like I said earlier, like an adventure with your Pokemon, it just doesn't hit the same. It's just not really prominent enough of a feature. You know, they don't make a point out of it, and when the Pokemon Company wants to make a point out of something, trust me, they will make a point out of it. Plus, the Pokemon just kind of run in circles most of the time, and if there's any Pokemon nearby, they'll just start, like, attacking them for no reason. Like, I just want to be able to have my Pokemon out and explore the region peacefully without them, like, you know, killing and going on a murdering spree of every single thing they see in their way. Of course, Pokemon Yellow was the first game to actually do this feature, and it definitely gave a good baseline for all following iterations. You got some cool little lines that Pikachu would say, like, you know, at first he hated you, but then as the journey continued, he slowly started warming up until, you know, he loves you. All of which is just like the anime. So it really does feel like they brought the anime to the games and made you feel like you were playing through the show. And I would say there still isn't a game that allows for the kind of connection that Pokemon Yellow does. Like, it really, really builds a relationship with Pikachu in a way that no game following that with one specific Pokemon was really able to do. And that's because of just how much personality and expression they let the little mouse have in this game, so it absolutely deserves recognition for that. Last but not least, I want to recognize that Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum did have a walking feature with Amity Square, but unfortunately it was just a singular area with a very, very limited selection of Pokemon, and it was fun to stroll around in, but like only having this one area available and only letting you send out 9 Pokemon or add the starters if you're playing Platinum, which by the way, those 9 Pokemon are just like ones they consider cute and like were, you know, like anime mascots or something that an anime character had at one point. So it was really just an advertisement. You know, the whole thing was like neat, but like compared to Heartgold and Soulsilver, it's just, this is nothing. This really might just be a matter of opinion, but if you look at Pokemon Heartgold and Soulsilver and compare it to all the other iterations of this feature, it's really easy to tell who's the clear winner here. The aesthetics and the actual mechanics of it are all just simply better than the other versions. For me, this is also just nostalgia bias, though. I grew up in the DS era, so it's like, I might as well be like 3 blind mice levels of blind without my DS era nostalgia goggles. But I want to hear what you think. Did you enjoy this feature as much as me? And do you think that Pokemon Heartgold and Soulsilver is the best version of it? Let me know in the comments below, and I'd appreciate it if you subscribed while you're at it. Thank you all so much for watching, and for walking down this trip through memory lane with me. Catch y'all on the next one.